Emerging markets are left, right, and center of the thing we talk about. Does the crisis in emerging markets hit demand for oil?
It did, and it may well affect in the next months to come. But still, we expect a robust global oil demand growth, about 1.4 million barrels per day this year, and next year a similar level of oil demand growth. And this strong growth, coupled with some supply side worries, concerns we may well see further tightening of the global oil markets towards the end of this year, such as what's happening in Venezuela today. Venezuelan production in 2 years of time is halved from about 2.5 million barrels per day, just 1.2. And we expect it can further decline, and this is definitely bad news. The concerns, worries in the Middle East, questions about Iran exports. Libya is still fragile. Nigeria is still fragile. Looking at all of them, the entire picture, I would say it wouldn't surprise me if we see further tightening of the markets towards the end of this year and putting still additional pressure on the prices, which in turn is a bad news for the emerging markets, as most of them are oil importing nations.
So first of all, tightening by how much? And I know you never or rarely give a price forecast, but does the range actually shift $10 higher?
No, today we have about $77, and if this picture I sketch out materializes, it means a strong oil demand growth, which is already there. Venezuela decline. I don't see any reason why there should be a reverse trend there.
Right.
And plus the Middle East issues, I would say we may expect a further upward pressure on the current prices. Again, the countries which will suffer the most from them is the emerging markets.
Right, but so this is a loop, right?
Exactly.
I guess. So
exactly.
When does it end? What needs to happen for it to be in a better footing for the price of oil?
We have what could help here is the U.S. shale. U.S. shale production is still very strong, but at this very period of time, the U.S. pipeline export capacity is coming to, it's completely full. And there is a bottleneck there, and there's a lot of developments. New pipelines are being constructed. We expected in 2019, this construction will finish, and there will be more capacity to export the U.S. crude.
How much more?
It depends on how much we will see the export capacity will increase, but we can expect at least another 500,000 come from there. Plus, what is now today in our hands is some of the key producers in Middle East, the OPEC alliance. They can also increase the production if they want to comfort the market.
But there were question marks about whether Saudi Arabia could actually make up for example, the oil loss because of the U.S. sanctions. Can they? Do they have the capacity? Do they want to?
Yeah. First of all, I should say that, to be very frank, Saudi Arabia already increased the production, which is a good news. And but there is still some room for Saudi production to increase and make up the loss in the global oil markets today. This is Venezuela and other issues. And this will be definitely helpful if we see not from the Saudis only, but from the other producers, a bit additional crude come to the markets and comfort the markets so that we don't see higher prices than what we have today, which is bad news for the important countries. But I believe in the medium term, also bad news for the oil exporting countries as well.
So I was talking to the former PBOC governor, and he was telling me when it comes to trade, more than hitting the economy in China will hit confidence, so the consumer will actually buy less things. Does that hurt the demand from oil as well? If
the trade disputes continue this way, and if they get even more intense, we may well see some effect on the demand. But I don't think that this will be a major, big factor in determining the future oil demand growth.
So you have a monthly report coming out next week. What have you been specifically looking at? What's different this time than it was last month?
I think we are seeing, I cannot give you the numbers, but what we are seeing is that more and more signals that we may see a tightening of the markets towards the end of this year. We have already anticipated this current situation, but we expect more tightening, therefore more pressure on the prices. And therefore, my expectation, my call to the major producer, if you don't want to see higher prices, please bring more volumes to the markets. And again, attribute to the Saudi Arabia, they already did some good work, but more work to be done in the next months to come.
What is the price of oil where it starts hitting demand from emerging markets? Is there a magic number?
It already does. It already does. And I can tell you that many emerging countries are going back to the previous pricing practices, subsidizing and also cutting the taxes in order to not to reflect these price increases directly to the consumers, so that the demand effect is not that much.
But do you think there's a number, a figure that actually the OPEC alliance will try not to get to?
It is up to OPEC to decide, but in my view, the current levels are already between 75 and 80. What we are experiencing today is already not a good news for the global economy, and I believe it is good for all of us, for the global economy, importers, but also for the exporters, not to see higher prices than we have today.